Hey everybody, and welcome to day 42. I said before I record a lot in the same day, so excuse the clothes being the same, but it's about the message, not about what I got on. Today is deep. I had said from yesterday or day 41 that I was going to give you a lot of things to ponder on and think about, ask yourself these questions. So on day 42, you got to listen to this. This is deep. This is so deep. It says, are we a source of our own problems? And do we create problems in our mind to give us something to focus on? I thought this was so deep. Are we the source of our own problems? I'm going to say a huge percentage of it is. I mean, because it all ties into mistakes and different things like that, because mistakes cause problems, and the people that we intermingle with and so forth can cause problems, and the decisions we make can cause problems. So it's like when we look at all of these different things and we connect all these different things in together, I'm going to say that a lot of it does have to do with the fact of we creating our own problem. The only things that I would say that are not a creation of oneself is anything that takes place outside that we have no control over, right? Things that happen that, a pipe that bursts, that's out of our control. It's a problem we have. It's not something we created. But when you dig a little deeper and you start looking at different things within your life and you start saying to yourself, did I create that problem? But the other funny part about this is part 2 of this question, of where it says, do we create the problems in our minds to give us something to focus on? And I think what happens is a lot of times when we get caught up in moments that things have disappointed us, it becomes a problem. And it becomes a problem that we create within our mind that we consistently focus on over and over and over again. It's almost like we're looking for a sympathetic ear within ourselves, because the problem just keeps going on in our head, and we keep going on and going on. And it's amazing to me as we sit back and I pondered on this, and I said, how many problems did I actually create in my own head when the solution was right there all along? And do I create problems within myself to take my mind away from other things? Whether it's feeling sorry for myself, or whether it's doing this or doing that. I mean, is that a situation of something that we do? I mean, I want you to ask yourself that question. Are you creating problems within yourself, and then are you creating them to give yourself something to focus on? Because do you feel like sometimes you're just kind of in a daze, you really don't have anything to focus on, so you create a problem. And that problem then in turn allows you to have something to focus on. It's really intriguing to me when I looked at this question, and I kept asking myself, am I creating any problems within myself right now? And it's something that I'm doing in order to focus on. I'm going to say yes and no. So, some plans as we move towards my birthday coming up really soon, some plans that were to be had were basically kind of fell through. So as it stands, like, I technically really don't have any plans for my 50th birthday. Some friends I have some plans with, but like plans that I should have had fell through. So this created a problem, and it created a problem that was deeper than just an internal problem of just like my head. It created a problem that I now need to make a lot of decisions, because it speaks volumes for when someone else creates a problem for you. And as I move into 2019, I've just been this person that said, I do not want to continue to have problems and continue to be the victim of other people's decisions. So I'm going to try my hardest in 2019 not to sit back and create a problem in my head for myself to focus on. I want you to do the same. It's just that when you do that, our thoughts are like, time and thoughts can be your enemy sometimes, Because, you know, if you're busy all the time and you're focusing on things and you're doing things and this and that and the other, you really don't have time to create a problem in your head. Like, you just don't. Because now you're focused on this, focusing on that, whether it's kids, dinner, house, wash, clothes, and all this stuff. You don't have time to focus on creating a problem. But the minute you have a moment to sit down on the couch and it's quiet, your brain will become your enemy sometimes, because you will then start pondering on stuff, especially when you're alone, especially when you sit back and you start thinking about stuff. And it is amazing to me what the mind can do when you're faced with almost under a self-attack. And it's like, it's weird. It's a double-edged sword, because you attack yourself with creating the problem, but then you're looking for a sympathetic ear, that ear which is yourself. So here's the problem you've created to think about, and then you start feeling sorry for yourself and you become sympathetic. You become a battle in your own mind, where you have like the devil and angel sitting on each shoulder, where you just like, what do you say? What do you say? You know, it just goes back and forth. So it's like, you can either take something you created in your mind, and whether it's because something someone else did or something that was created by yourself, you can take the bull by the horns and say, I'm not going to sit in this corner and be totally sad and depressed and continuously choose this to focus on. It's actually the worst thing you can ever do, is if you sit back and say to myself, I am solely going to focus on the problem I just created in my head. Instead, you could take it from a different perspective and say, I am not actually going to focus on the problem. I'm actually going to focus on solutions. Problems are inevitable. Mistakes are inevitable. They will always exist, always be there. There won't be anything you can do. But in that regard, what you can turn around and do is say, I'm only going to focus on it, but for so long, and then I'm going to come up with the solutions necessary to take advantage, take the bull by the horns and deal with it. That is the best thing that you can do. Don't live in this thing of, here's a problem, I'm going to just constantly focus on it. I'm going to create more problems from the existing problem within my head, so I can focus on those problems even more and more and more. It will become a weapon inside of you internally. I always say, I'm just a big person. At least this is what I've grown into in my 50 years, being faced with problems, and being faced with problems sometimes that are out of my personal control. I am a person that has now grown into this way of life of take charge. What I do now, and what I've been doing for a little while now, is whenever I am faced with a problem, I take charge of it. I don't lose sight of what the purpose is, because I'm so caught up in the problem. I take control and I say, you know what? I am not going to sit back and just sulk and be sad and be upset and be depressed and all this kind of stuff. I'm going to remove myself from the situation, right? Because sometimes if you remain in the situation, it'll keep bringing and adding more fuel to the problem, right? So you have to remove yourself from it, get a new perspective, trust in your direction, trust in what you're doing, and stop creating additional problems for you to focus on. The problems that you want to deal with in 2019 are not the ones you created. You want to deal with the problems that are out of your control. You want to find a way to limit that of which you personally create. And that goes with anything, mind, body, soul. If you are having a problem physically, health-wise, or whatever, instead of you sitting on a couch and keep pondering and about the problem and the problem in which you're having, instead take charge and come up with a solution. Now that problem is dealt with. What's the next problem you got going on? All right, I'm not going to sit here 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 days and deal with it. I'm going to come up with a solution. I'm going to come up with options, have discussions about it, and deal with it. Because the worst thing that you could ever do is sit, just like what this question says. Are you creating problems in your own head, and then are you creating additional problems for you to focus on even further? Do not do that in 2019. Just understand the difference between what you are personally creating and versus the things that are out of your control. And I can guarantee you, I bet you there's a huge percentage of even the ones that you think are out of your control, you've actually created and can fix those too. There's very little of a problem that can get generated that is totally not something you personally created or didn't have a part in. I'm telling you, there is a way to fix this and fix it and figure it out, but don't spend too much time in your own way of taking problems and saying, I'm going to create additional problems. And you know what? I'm going to add this on top of it too. Your mind will drive you nuts. Your mind will make you sad. Your mind will make you depressed. It'll make you do things that you don't even want to do. It'll even make you spend money you shouldn't spend because you're mad and you're upset about this. It'll make you eat something you shouldn't eat because you're mad and upset about this. It'll just trickle down into all of these different things when in the end, you should just take charge and say, okay, here's the problem. I'm not going to create an additional problem. I'm going to create a solution. So do that in 2019. Recognize what you're creating yourself as a problem, what problems are out of your control, and just come up with solutions with all of them. Don't waste another time, another moment, anything on a problem that can just exceed and be more and more and more of a problem. Don't do that. Just fix it. Come up with a solution, and I guarantee you'll be very liberated in the process. All right, everybody. See you tomorrow.